Good morning and good afternoon to all, and thank you for joining us today. Firstly, I will explain some information about today's conference, about aim of this conference. But firstly, I wanted to ask you also to give information to web chat. Is it good sound? And also, please give me this information because we need good sound, we need to have good conversations, because after our conference we wanted to spread our ideas and spread also information about projects to different government structures. So that's why it's must be good connections. So please tell me about these organizing issues. If it's okay, I will start also presentation. I will start presentation of our idea and of aim of today's event. Is it okay with voice? It's perfect. Yeah. Okay. Thank you one more time. So my name is Одарченко, and I'm also tell a little bit about our NGO and about me. So firstly, Institute for Democracy and Development. It's a Ukrainian-based NGO think tank, and we for a long time working with educational process in Ukraine and democracy development, also printing books about democracy development, about like free and fair elections. And we do many experience exchange work. Also, like 2 years ago, we have a huge experience exchange work in United States, in Washington, D.C. And now we also work in Washington, D.C., but with not the same condition, yeah, and we must fight for our country. Also, I'm had business or have a business, EC Group in Ukraine. It's consulting company, and also maybe you know about my political work. We also like 2.5 years ago registered new political force, like Central Political Force, Pro-Western Political Force. And before, my father was a very popular member of parliament from southern Ukraine, and now our native region is occupied. My father under Russian sanctions because of his pro-European and pro-American position, and Russians take also all his friends and activists from his political team, and they beaten them. So now it's a situation, it's very difficult, and that's why on this discussion I'm, for example, propose for you the next aim of our discussion. So the first aim it's understanding of analyze what really happened in Ukraine from Ukrainians. Because here in DC, I also was on different think tank talks where about situation in Ukraine. We are talking only with Americans or with people who like here working in think tanks, but they originally from Europe, but not from Ukrainians. That's why it's very important to understand what really happened from Ukrainians. For example, I represent you my vision about situation in Kherson region in southern Ukraine. Secondly, so it's like I will ask all Ukrainians to explain for 3 minutes their position about current situation. So of course, not like we have war, but situation, for example, I work in humanitarian sphere and I see this situation, these problems, these opportunities, and then other 2-3 minutes to represent directly your work in your region. For example, if your project connects with humanitarian aid, please say to us what you directly do. If, for example, you work with women's rights or human rights, please also explain shortly what to do, because also after this, we will give to our website your direct contacts and contacts of your NGOs. And I hope that also in America, more than 100 million people, and in Europe also many people who want to support Ukraine. And I think that this platform must be also platform for communication and for more power to your projects. Also, I am invite here people which also I'm trust, and I'm really it's a big honor that they today with us, and they will represent their projects which connected in Ukraine. And also second part, it will be position from our European partners, so people who in Europe working on helping on Ukraine. So I also ask you as European partners from Austria, from Germany, from Portugal, from all over the Europe. We have quite a lot of people from Europe to represent your position about like understanding your position about understanding situation, represent your projects, because many of you working also with refugees programs, and also like give us a lot more information what really Europeans think about situation. And in third part, I also ask our American colleagues to represent also their vision of conflict, to represent vision of government and parliament here in United States, and of course also to do like conclusions after information which you have from Ukrainians, from European partners, and so on and so forth. Also, I must mention, like in organizing issues, that some people who in Ukraine haven't not good internet connections, and some people have flights. So please feel free to ask me, give to you direct your 5-7 minutes if you have some circumstances, and if you can't be for 2 hours, I will be a moderator, and today it's an honor for me, and I will give to you a word maybe earlier than like your blog, because for example, Mrs. Lima, she asked me earlier, Mrs. Varava, so I'm give to Miss Varava, I give to you your part of speech a little earlier. And in conclusion of my introduction, I wanted to also represent my point in situation to Ukraine, and also maybe give some terms for thinking about this. So firstly, of course, I see a huge problem with the humanitarian issue in Ukraine. What's the problem? The problem is that we have billions of support of Western partners, but we have big logistical problems. So this humanitarian aid go to big hub, but then when we trying to deliver it from big humanitarian hub to small villages, and people in villages very poor, so they live for $30 a month, not a day, not an hour, not a week, a month. And that's why they really need to have this humanitarian support. And I know directly that in the Zaporizhia region, in Kherson region, occupied and not occupied, it's a problem because people in deeply villages haven't access to this humanitarian aid. So please, also I propose you also this term. Secondly, it's of course understanding what will be after our win of Ukraine in Ukraine. So it's discussion about like foundations for support of Ukraine. It's also this discussion about maybe Marshall's plans in Ukraine. It's more question to our European and American partners because Ukrainian analytics want to understand how now we work on it. Third question, it's of course question to our European partners, because now we have millions of refugees to Europe, and it's refugees to Poland, it's refugees to Germany, it's refugees to Austria, and thanks to colleagues who from these countries also join us. And I also wanted to ask you what you thinking about like situation, or Europe give more weapons to Ukraine and more support, or Europe must be prepared for big refugee problem. And also last week, for example, our Institute for Democracy and Development sent more than 2,000 letters to politicians in Germany. It's politicians from land tax, so it's like federal parliament and to federal governments, like subjects of federation. And we also like ask them what is capacity of your budget for Ukrainian refugee. And also we will ask some direct questions about support of Ukraine and about more weapons to Ukraine, because position of Germany, position of France, very important to us to understand what will be in Europe and how European Union will support our country. So because there also have one condition, or support Ukraine now, or have like a big refugee problem. And I think that Putin will speculate on this term, of course, because I think that he bombed also civilians because he wanted to create this refugee program and want to give more and more problems to European Union. Also, let's discuss this European issue. I think it's very important, and it's also very interesting to see position from our colleagues from Berlin, from our colleagues who worked in Germany. So how it looks like public policy position in Germany, and how we can change it. And also, of course, on the next question, I propose to you discussion about human rights, about women's rights, about Russia war crimes, which now we have in Ukraine. Of course, nobody don't want to discuss it in details because it's like taboo term, because it's really hard to know what really happens with women and children in Ukrainian villages and in occupied territories. But we must help these people, and thanks to people who work now on programs of psychological helping to these people. Also, I must mention that now I'm working like 2 weeks in Washington, D.C., and I have meetings with politicians here, with lobbyists here, and also we sent many letters to congressmen, to senators, with explanation of what's happened in Ukraine, and with proposals to do more wider program of support, also all these issues, from questions of trade bans, which were in bills. It was voted 2 weeks ago, I think, yes, before vacation of American Parliament, and also Biden's initiative. But we also need to have more wider program for humanitarian aid and more wider program for aid for women and child, and maybe more pressure to European Union. But let's discuss all these questions. It's my point of view, and of course, one more time, and I'm also ask here people on demonstrations here in DC and on every my interview to TV and to projects which we do with journalists. It's of course remember not only for Kiev region, but also about Kherson region, because now it's political pressure. Now Russians trying to do their political regime there. Now they go to villages, houses, and stolen stolen also animals from people and do pressure to people. And unfortunately, there are no journalists, and we can see all this horror which happens also in my own Kherson region. It's, you know, after Crimea. So that's why it's also very important to mention also Kherson region and to trying to help people give green corridors, give humanitarian aid, because now it's totally blocked by Russians. If you will be details, I of course will give you more information in this conversation. Now I also will copy to our chat more information about speakers, and you can see also this information to orient about short biography of each other. And that's why firstly, as I mentioned, I wanted to give opportunity to speech to my Ukrainian colleagues, and yes, please, it's if possible, we will starting from Mr. Bereza. He's from Nikolaev region. It's also southern region. Maybe you know it's a region where we have fires. So if Alexander Bereza from Nikolaev ready to have 5 minutes, it will be perfect. If no, I will ask to have a speech also Nadia Kapanitsa. She worked with people who was victims of Russian war crimes, and then Uriel Stern, who work also on humanitarian aid to Irpin. So who is ready? Please please join, and let's start from Ukrainian point of view. If Mr. Bereza from Mykolaiv not ready, I'm ask Nadia to explain what you do in your team and also what's happened in Irpin. Please 5 minutes. And if somebody needs help with translation, please ask me. I will help with that. So Nadia Kapanitsa, please, your 5 minutes. Yeah, okay. Nadia Kapanitsa and then Alexander Bereza.
Я перша?
Будь ласка, якщо можна.
Hello all. I am Nadia Kapanitsa. I live in capital of Ukraine, Kyiv. Now I work in my hometown in Kyiv. And my whole family helps Ukraine. Someday later, I will tell you about it. I will talk about my full project that I am currently working on. The first project. The project is called First Psychological Service for Women and Children. The service we with colleges, psychologistic, have done at the city administration. We provided first to everyone who need it. The first month they worked in the subway and the station. People lived in metro station. Now we are working with organization in Kyiv and Kyiv region. We help you deal with stress second project, I help small business atelier that sews uniform for the military. The difficulty is the child of 17 employers, only 2 people reminded. Found a few more people. We find fabrics and money for fabrics. We sew uniforms for the military. This thought project, I help to supply some departments of the military hospital in Kiev with medicines and with transport medicines to the military units located near Kiev. We carry medicines from the cities of Ukraine and from Poland. It is interesting, the logistics, and our team was organized and carried out by the director of one of the 5 most successful financial companies. And my fourth project, help the botanical garden, which is located in the city center. The first step was 3 weeks ago. My neighbor and I heard of 60 invitations to meet and clean up the botanical garden. More than 70 people come. Not only those people who live nearby come to the second meeting. People come from different parts of the city. People come who moved from other cities. Everyone wants to help the botanical garden. I see that people want to unite the help to do useful and important these things for their country and their city. There are also various other things that I do every new day, and no day is the same for me. What I do every day, I watch all the news and pray for our victory. Slava Ukraini! Героям слава!
Thank you. And Nadia, if it's possible, can you a little explain also how many victims we have in Kiev region? Because of course it's very hard to say about that, say about rapings, say about all military crimes, but I think that we will share all this information with Americans, and I think that they must understand real picture of the situation. And you, as a person who work with psychological term, can you explain condition of these people and how we all can help to them? Because it's very difficult question. Том, розкажи, будь ласка, про власне кількість людей, які постраждали від російської військової агресії. I can translate if I will translate, not a problem.
Окей, да. Мені важко говорити про кількість людей, тому що перші тижні у нас їхали людей тисячі. Київ був така база, Київ не залишав у себе людей, люди тільки могли переночувати і їхати далі. Тобто ми їм надавали першу допомогу і далі допомагали їм сісти на потяг, який їм був потрібен, далі зробити таку для них мапу, що вони могли робити далі. Тобто допомагали людям якось себе опритомніти. І це був суцільний жах, тому що ми спали 1 годину на добу.
I will translate. So I asked Nadia about direct situation because she directly worked with all people from Kiev region as psychological team, and I asked her also not in general but directly what happens, and she said that it was totally disastrous because thousands of people go to Kiev and Kiev can't take all these people. That's why they only stay for night and then they must go to like other regions, and their psychological condition, it was really horrible. So that's why Nadia can't even explain all this horrible situation. Якщо коротко, от, ну, яка кількість людей, як ми можемо їм допомогти, і ну, що психологи ще ну, мають зробити міжнародні, щоб допомогти ну, цій ситуації?
Я вважаю, що про це можна буде говорити вже після закінчення війни, тому що коли ми говоримо про міжнародну допомогу психологічну, то краще її надавати в офлайні, а не в онлайні. Тобто людина, яка знаходиться в стресі, вона не сприймає онлайн. А можна буде просто робити якісь такі групи, терапевтичні групи, які могли би виїжджати, наприклад, кудись туди, де нема всього такого суцільного лиха. Можна просто буде допомагати, ну, скажімо так, оздоравлювати людей, ну, тобто робити такі, не знаю, табори, де можна було б людей залучати до якихось таких мирних справ. Це перше. Я хочу сказати, що...
Можете задати вопрос?
Yes. Now I will translate. Я, пані Ірина.
Давай, да, пожалуйста. Надя, да, я знаю, что вы там работаете в ужасных стрессе сами, и я просто немножко знаю, что у вас там происходит. Я пыталась найти людей, ну, специалистов, которые имеют опыт, ну, хотя бы приблизительно похожих. С вами кто-то работает, кто-то дает какие-то протоколы, или пока еще никто из Израиля, я не знаю, люди, которые имеют опыт в Сирии, с вами не связывались?
I will translate this conversation because mostly people, like half people, don't understand Ukrainian. So Nadia said that in psychological team, what we can do together, yeah, it's better to work with people directly because Zoom and other electronical devices, it's not worked for people who in such stress. So we need international psychological team to work in some safe place directly with these people, like person to person. And if you also have these opportunities, please tag. And then Irina Miroshnik, also she will had speech today. She asked about her contacts of people who work in Syria, people who psychologists in Israel, how it works, and did they help to Ukraine? And it will be last question to Nadia, and we're moving forward. Да, будь ласка, Надя.
Я очень быстро. Начиная с 2014 года к нам приезжали израильтяне и проводили такие большие тренинги для психологов, для специалистов-психологов. Это первое. Потом у нас целая команда работала в Боснии, ну, то есть украинских психологов работала в Боснии. Вот. И у нас довольно большая группа и прямо целое объединение, которое работает по международным протоколам с жертвами насилия, ну, потому что у нас сейчас этот вопрос стоит очень остро. Вот. Ну и не далее, как недавно, ну, то есть у нас целая команда выезжала, ну, в общем, в Бучу, выезжала с людьми, которые, ну, короче говоря, в морги ездили для того, чтобы опознавать, родственники могли кого-то опознать. Вот. Ну, знаете, я могу сказать, что, если так можно сказать, только в этом случае, что вызывает какую-то гордость, что, сейчас я могу заплакать, что командиры записывают, кто где погибал. И совсем недавно хоронили мальчика, который погиб во второй день войны, потому что командир абсолютно точно записал то место, где он погиб. Его нашли в братской могиле, ну, распознали только лишь по татуировке на ноге. Вот. Ну и это очень ну, знаете, так вот, ну, как-то невероятно, потому что, с одной стороны, то есть вот просто командир, который переживает просто каждого человека, каждую смерть, и все это, ну, подробно записывает. Вот, по поводу...
I will translate. So, Nadia, of course, if we said directly what happens and what psychological now do, they also go to a place where dead people come and they help to relatives, like in procedure of identifying these people, and it's very hard because, as you can understand, it's very hard. And also Nadia said that some people from Ukrainian army also have a list where people died to identify there in future. And it's only one little point in all this massacre which we have in Kiev region. Also, I might mention that Bucha, it's like 10 kilometers from the center of capital of Ukraine, so it's almost Kiev, and that's why also some Israeli people came to help with these issues. But you know, it's not like theoretical seminar. It's really horror which people must go through, and for example, they find their childs in big graves, and they must identify the child in big like mutual grave. So it's really horrible. And we explained to you only these examples because Nadia also worked with people who was raped, with children who was raped, to also explain that we must stop it. It's that it's not theoretical question, that it's practical question. Yeah, and the last point, Nadia, and moving forward. Yeah. Еще что-то?
Ну, наверное, я просто хотела еще сказать то, что несмотря на то, что Киев не обстреливали, у нас еще были люди из домов, которые были уничтожены в Киеве. И это 157 домов. То есть в Киеве разрушено 157 домов, высоких домов, люди из которых тоже нуждались в том, чтобы их переселили, у них тоже были такие психологические травмы, и надо было вот еще по ходу как-то еще им помогать. Вот, ну вот так мы живем сейчас, да.
Yeah, and Nadia said that even that more missiles was in Kiev region, not in Kiev, and battles in Kiev was destroyed 157 buildings at all. And of course, people in Kiev, it's not like little house, it's big buildings, big condominiums. And that's why also all these people need to have help because they must move in from their places which was destroyed, and it's also part of their work. Thank you, Nadia, one more time. We also have discussion in the end, so if somebody have questions like Irina and initiatives, please, we have like open platform, and you can also interrupt or give some advices or give other position. Let's move to Mr. Bereza because he works in Nikolaev region, and it's also a hot point, unfortunately in Ukraine. And Mr. Bereza also works in municipal power. So if it's possible, please explain us also role of municipal power in Nikolaev, because, for example, in Kherson region, which occupied it, my father and other activists also connect people from local councils, and they vote that this territory is Ukraine, and Nikolaev is the next region. Yes, so now it's battles there. So how you help people, how you do humanitarian aid, what's the role of like local councils? Please, your 5 minutes. Are you with us, Mr. Bereza?
Yes, I
Yes,
am with
yes.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, hello everybody from Mykolaiv. Really, in Mykolaiv today is a very difficult situation because we have everyday systematic rocket strikes, missile strikes in the city. The enemy strikes the city with the help of cluster rockets. That's why we have many damages of civil buildings, and there are many casualties of civil society, ordinary people. And I think 2 weeks ago we had new problem in the city. This problem is supplying of water to the city. In Mykolaiv today we don't have water in the city. In the central lines we don't have water. That's why the main task of municipal power and regional power, regional authority, municipal authority is supplying of water for the people. Now we are organizing supplying of the water with the help of special cars. We obtain help from the other cities, Ukrainian cities, with water for drinking, because with the help of cars we are supplying water for people for their home aims. And of course we have other tasks. This is the help that people who are damaged, whose homes were damaged in result of airstrikes. We have many casualties in our hospitals and etc. Very hot point today in Mykolaiv we have.
And can you explain, please, what is cooperation between municipal councils and central power? So how humanitarian aid go to Mykolaiv villages, and also what's the budget financing, or maybe you also cooperate with different like Canada government, which give humanitarian aid. So can you please explain a little bit for our European and American colleagues how it works in details?
You see that today, as in Mykolaiv, we have war situation, военный стан. The main role in this activity is civil regional administration, військово-воєнна адміністрація. The main role in this activity has our head of our regional, Vitaly Kim, very popular person, do you know? Yes. And of course we have help from state budget concerning humanitarian help, products, and other things which needs people for their everyday activity. I mean soap and so other. And we have in Mykolaiv several funds, volunteer funds, who also help to obtain this humanitarian help from other cities and from other countries.
Okay, thank you. And if you have some initiative also from southern region, because I know that many people also from Kherson region move into your region because it's the next. So please, please present it maybe now or in second part of our cooperation, because mostly this humanitarian aid also go through Western Ukraine, and of course in Southern Ukraine it's a little lack of this aid, as I know from Kherson region situation, which not occupied.
You see that using this possibility, I would like to thank many for every city from Ukraine, because they help Mykolaiv very much. Odessa, Kropivnitsky, Cherkasy, Kyiv. These mayors of these cities help Mykolaiv with the water, and відчуваємо this support.
We feel the support, yeah. Okay,
Yes,
thank you, Mr. Bereza. Thank you, Alexander. And we moving forward. Mrs. Lima asked to have her speech. She's from Portugal, but she have other meeting, and also she must work with refugees next hour. So Marta, please, your 5 minutes to explain what you do, and also understanding of situation with refugees who go to Portugal, please.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me. And I am sorry, but here in Portugal, yesterday was our Freedom Day. It's a very important holiday, and we are full of events. And also I am taking care of 200 families here in Faro, in my city. So I do have a lot of people to attend to. So this is one thing that I want to say, that all Ukrainians are welcome in Portugal, and we are doing everything in our power to keep them safe and as healthy and happy as possible. So since the first day of the invasion and the war started, Associação Doina, that's the NGO that I work with, we have been working straight with the Ukrainian community living in Portugal. And we are helping on the rescue from Ukrainian for their families to reunite with the Ukrainian families. So this was the first 2 weeks of the war. And since then, it's not just the Ukrainian citizens with family in Portugal, but also more and more refugees look for Portugal because as they say, Portugal is the furthest away possible from the conflict. So this also means that logistically, the travel from Ukraine to our country is extremely difficult and long and extremely tiresome. So what we did at Doina, we built a network with mainly with Poland and with Romania, because it was already a network that we used to work with. I am a project manager for the youth and for women's issues, and I have been working with against human trafficking for a very long time now. So we already had some contacts and some partnerships. So we activated immediately the entire network to keep refugees as safe as possible. So, and we are working with authorities like the Portuguese government, all the embassies, and Romanian and Polish representatives that are in both NGOs, official ones, police, Interpol, Europol, all the what it's needed to keep people safe. And every single case, every single person that contacts us from Ukraine or their family in Portugal, they contact us asking help to come here. We immediately activate the entire network for the protection of all the entire trip. And we do visits to their family members to make sure they are absolutely true family members, and they do have the necessary conditions to house their the refugees that are en route. So we have, and if they don't, we find housing and all the other social support that they need. At the present, we are doing everything. We take them to the
Marta,
doctors.
can I ask, is it mostly like government money? And so do you do some lobbying work for take this government money, or it's private initiatives, because it's not totally understand?
Okay, so at first, it was about the municipalities that got the requests from the communities already living in Portugal. And because the NGOs pushed and pressed the local government representatives or the municipalities, then they started to both send caravans, like buses, to bring the families to Portugal, and also the trucks to carry the donations with the goods to go into the Ukraine. So now that is almost over, because municipalities and local governments authorities are very low on budget. We are still recovering from the pandemic, and the funds from the EU that were announced are not as of yet available for us. The NGOs are fundraising, and for instance, we at Doina, we are in the south of Portugal in Algarve, and what we do, if we need a flight from for a refugee family from, I don't know, Bucharest, for instance, or from Warsaw, we ask for our volunteers, and they pay for the ticket, they pay for the hotel, they pay for Uber, they pay for Uber Eats, they pay for everything, one family at a time. And we are doing this case by case, because we do choose who is involved and how many information is shared. So we control, so there is no way of that documents are being flying around and shared on Facebook or nothing like that. We are trying to protect as much as possible the privacy and identity of the all the refugees, and and volunteers as well. We have been a bit uneasy at times, because there are some reports of, especially at the Polish border, of severe issues with human trafficking. So we are very, very aware of the problem, and we are fighting as much as we can. We would like very much to say that it's very, very important to us to establish connections with NGOs inside Ukraine, because a lot of times families that want to come to Portugal or other places in Europe, they do not know which routes to take to leave Ukraine and reach the border that would be safe. So sometimes they are asking these questions to us and we have no answers. So if you can, please share that information or establish some partnership with us, we would be very, very grateful. As also, as the families establish themselves and finally sleep, because to get to Portugal, this means they are extremely sleep deprived. And after a week or two of sleep, food, rest, they do start to show symptoms of anxiety and war trauma and other aggressions they are victims of. So I would say that psychologists here, the official organization that licensed psychologists are available, but we have the extreme difficult barrier of language to overcome. Most Portuguese people, most psychologists in Portugal do not speak Ukrainian. We have been working very hard on translation apps, and but it's not clinically appropriate. So if there are projects that are therapists that speak Ukrainian that we could share online with the refugees that we see over here, already here, I would be very grateful as well, because I am a psychologist and I know that some people are in need and I do not have the means to help them all. So if we can join and joint efforts, that we can, I'm sure, treat all the Ukrainians as best as we can.
Thank you, Marta. And I think Nancy also from United States asked for your contacts, and she wanna cooperate with you, as I understand. So if it's possible, I share to, I think that mostly people who are here, they want to cooperate. So if you give to me this opportunity, I will share direct contacts and introduce you to work together, because I think that it's not a secret if we want to be effective. Thank you, Marta, one more time. And it's very interesting that Marta organized it from municipality and volunteers, because, for example, in Austria, it's other situation, yeah, and in Germany, we will discuss. Now we have the next order. So Ms. Varava explained her position. Nancy, do you want to have small comments?
Yes, because
yes,
I need to leave. I have a meeting at 11:30, so I only have a few more minutes. I had a hard stop at 11. If you don't mind me jumping in for a few minutes?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Nancy also worked for a long time with Women's Question in the United States, and she taken part in many Ukrainian conferences. So please, your reflection and also give please more information about your work. And then Ms. Varava, and then Julia from Berlin. Yeah.
Well, thank you for letting me jump in. I'm Nancy Bosker, and I lived in Washington, D.C. for almost 40 years. I am back in my home state of Ohio because of COVID. I'm helping take care of my 96-year-old mother. However, even though I'm sitting here, I have been very involved, and I wanted to just share with you what I'm doing and what it would be really great that we all collaborate. First, I've worked in Moldova 3 times, and so I have now raised $35,000 from just Facebook friends to fund the refugees center in Chisinau that is being run by the NGO that I've worked with since 2014. They have brought in thousands of women and children and pets, including a pet duck. So that was like a new thing for me, as a pet duck and a pet goose. But I'm happy to share that link in case you want to model something like that, to reach out to your own networks to raise money for what you're doing. I have found that to be very helpful. I'm stunned. I thought I would raise $5,000 for my friends. I still can't believe it's at about 35,000 right now. So that was the first thing that I did. And just keep in mind that Facebook only releases the money about once a month. So no matter what I did and who I called at Facebook, I still had to wait. So I am now just sending another batch of money over to them, but I've had to wait many weeks. So just keep that in mind, that Facebook does, it is a bureaucracy like many other things. The second thing that one of the NGOs I've worked in Lithuania, and just a side story, our US State Department and many embassies invite me to come and speak in these countries and teach civic engagement, fundraising, community leadership. And so I've worked in the region more than 20 times. So I have a lot of deep connections throughout the area and have worked in many of these countries. So when someone I knew from Vilnius wrote me and she said, I have a dire request. And it was BISOL, which is a Belarusian NGO, was in desperate need of sexual assault kits, rape kits. And then in Europe, they were going to cost $300 a piece. I started working my networks, and within 48 hours, I had found, because of a friend, a major corporation who is now donating 500 kits, and they're on their way from Netherlands to Lithuania, and so we can get those to Ukraine. So I'm doing all of this as a volunteer, but I want you to know that if you have some specific request, I also worked to get some more pet supplies delivered to the region. After 40 years in DC, I know a lot of people and they are all stepping up. So that's really what I just wanted to jump in with, and am also working with many organizations that are helping get refugees out of Ukraine. Right now, the focus, of course, is on Odessa. They're not busing people out of Kyiv anymore because people can get out themselves from there. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm just here to help cut red tape and figure out who I can call to help everyone. So thank you for inviting me to the call.
Thank you, Nancy, for your work now and for your previous work. And we also share to you our initiatives. If you have more 10 minutes, I think that it will be interesting for you also point of Anna and point of Julia, because Julia also work with many, also with Women's STEM and from Berlin. So if you have 10 more minutes, please also take attention to these quotes. But if no, we will send also video after this conference. So please, Miss Anna Varava, about her vision of public diplomacy problems in this war. And I think that it will be connected with the word of Julia about situation in Germany. So please, shortly about your position. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Yeah, will be very short. So what I see is that it's a war also on media level and on cultural field, and that is done between artists of Ukraine and Russia, and they deeply support, one support Russians and the other support Ukrainians. And from the other side, I was following the situation from the point of view of Russia, that they invested a lot of money long before the war in cultural diplomacy. They did it in Berlin with Russian initiatives, with propaganda, and also with Russian culture everywhere. They did it by means of cultural diplomacy in Dubai. So now we can see that a lot of people from Russia and from Moscow, who has money, they went where? To Dubai. And they do their business there, and they have a great life over there. So they prepared that before, and it's very important to think about that things also by means of Instagram and social media. If you say something bad about Russians, there are a lot of bots, and there are a lot of means that they block your accounts or they delete your comments. I did it by myself, and all other people did it. When you try to address Russian singers, artists, people who have millions of followers, to step in, to say something, not to kill people, to stop all this, they just ignore it. And just a few days after the war, they made a law in Russia that if you say something about war, or you mean that you use this word, you will go to prison for 15 years. So no one in Russia is allowed to say anything. They call it special operation, and everything, like in a Google, they have their own access. They can't find real pictures. They can't find real things about Ukraine. If you Google Bucha in Ukraine, you can see what's really happening. You can see, that's awful pictures I don't want to even tell about, but you can see that. And from Russian side, if you Google it, or I don't know what they use, Yandex or whatever, their own resource, web source where they can find information. So Bucha is flourishing with spring trees and happy people. If you say, if you also try to find any information, so all is hidden. And this war began long before we have it now. It was done by all the other means, and by propaganda that goes via people who have audiences and who can speak. For instance, in Moscow, when it was started, very well-known singers supported Putin, and they came to the stage and they were for war. And they stay in the country and say this is Russia and nothing is going on in Ukraine. So a lot of very controversial things, and they have a very powerful influence on our mind because it goes subconsciously. And a lot of people, they have relatives in Russia, and the families are broken because people living in Russia, they don't believe that something is going on in Ukraine. They think everything is fine, and you're really crazy. They believe that Ukrainian Nazis fight their own people. They kill their own kids, and like Ukrainians are crazy people, but we are from there. I had to leave here in 10 minutes my city, Kiev, and I think it's not acceptable, and no one in the world can tell me to leave my city. And with all this means of say again, propaganda, how it works on very deep level, people just don't understand the real things. And we can also, we have to work on that. And what we do by myself, by means of cultural diplomacy and by means of promoting our talents, our designers, our artists around Europe, try to bring more attention to Ukraine and say that Ukraine is really part of Europe. We have European values and we want to be in a peaceful world. And what is done in Russia is really different things. So I can say much more. And one more point that is obvious, that in Russia, they remake the history. So people in schools now, we all know that it was Kiev Rus, but now they put in their books that there is no Kiev, that it was Rus. So Kiev is deleted from all the historical books. Moreover, they say that, for instance, avant-garde artists that were Ukrainian by their origin, they are all Russians, like Malevich, but you can see that all of them were born in Ukraine. So all the facts, and a lot of facts, I don't say all, but a lot of facts from the history are mixed. And they say it's all Russian and Ukraine never existed. So that is not okay. And I think that things have to be done to bring that to normality, to reality, to how it is in real world, or how we are not or not how we said it has to be. So that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Anna. And Anna, for a long time, worked with these questions of public diplomacy. And now, I think in the period of war, many things, it's also worked by public diplomacy, also here in Washington, D.C., because many events which fundraise money, it's events of public diplomacy. We move into Julia. Julia,
sorry,
yeah,
just a small note. Yeah, if we are talking about US, and US is very active in public diplomacy for ages, for the history, and we can say that we can see that a lot of money were raised by Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis family, yeah, who are actually, this has nothing with politics. They are just singers, movie stars, and so on. A lot public people supported UNICEF and also raising money for Ukrainian kids and mothers. So we can bring more attention to this question, and it will help a lot as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Julia, can I ask also you question? You based in Berlin, and now Julia, I think, also explain about your projects, Voices of Ukraine. And also I explained to Julia situation when we sent these 2,000 letters to people in land tax, to people in like a subject of federation in Germany who must operate places for refugees. And I also explore a lot about German position to Ukraine, and I haven't direct answers. Is mostly people in Germany, they ready to give weapons to Ukraine, or they ready to give more places for refugees, because they understand if they don't will support Ukraine, they will have refugee problem. But now it's like totally situation when people from local governments to our letters and to our calls said that, oh, we will explore, and it's a question of budget, and we will call you later. So can you please explain about your work and about directly what happens in Germany, because German position extremely important in this situation of diplomacy war and war which we have with Russia in Europe. Please, Julia.
Yes, Katerina, many thanks for inviting me to join the circle. Good morning, good afternoon to every one of you. I'm Julia, and I'm originally from Kiev, Ukraine, but now since 14 years in Berlin, citizen of Germany. My family, however, parents were all in Kiev. Right now, dad stayed there, and my mom and grandparents became refugees. They're with me here in Berlin. So it's a little bit personal background. And right now, I'm with every day turning to be more and more an activist for Ukraine, because I feel the following, that there are two different pairs of shoes. One pair is help to refugees, humanitarian aid, and I feel all people are engaged to a certain extent. They either donate money or they maybe host families. They help families to find places to live, to find places to work or study. So from this perspective, I have a feeling the support is very, very big. So if you say people in Ukraine are dying, almost everyone will say, this is horrible, of course, let's help. But then there is a different part of shoes, which is like help, which can really stop the war. Because if we zoom out for a second, we will see helping refugees is basically very necessary help, but it only helps to minimize, mitigate the damage which a war is causing. But it is in no way helping to stop the reason why refugees are coming. It's basically the war. So that is a totally different set of activities where actually we as individuals do not have that much power to decide, because it is on the side of our governments. It is help on two main fields. First, arm Ukraine or not arm Ukraine, and secondly, cut Russian oil and gas or not cut Russian oil and gas. And here is obviously completely interesting split. And as Anna Varava just said, this incredible term, cultural diplomacy, there is also certain kind of like lost war for this, I feel, in Germany. And also there are a lot of narratives in German media, which I can imagine have been curated by someone very deliberately, that are more pro-peace, that we are for peace. We are against war, we are for peace. That's why Germany shall not engage in any sending weapons and everything. So this is very, very dangerous narratives which are here, which require a lot of explanation and correction, let's say it in this way. You also probably have heard about the huge scandal which right now is happening around the Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, because he is the biggest blocker of German aid to Ukraine. And right now it turned out that he single-handedly has completely changed the list of weapons which German industry is capable of providing to Ukraine. He had removed a half of the list, 20 pages from 40, which mentions the most critical supplies which Ukraine had been asking for. He just left some kind of sharp pencils. So it is, yeah, I do not want to go that much into detail about that, but what I'm doing with my project, Voices of Ukraine, it is an Instagram project where, which started as a platform where simply ordinary Ukrainian people can send little video message. Basically, they record it like that. They say what happened to them, and they have maybe some appeal to the West. So it was first only Ukrainian people who are inside of Ukraine, but right now it is already being opened to people who are maybe of Ukrainian origin or anyhow related to Ukraine or simply care deeply. And who live in other countries, who are citizens maybe of Germany, EU, USA, who can also voice their message of support there. And it is slowly turning into a place where I want people to feel first that they are co-responsible for this, that people in Germany are co-responsible, because every day our government is sending 500 million euro to buy Russian gas, and they simply do not want to get rid of this dependency needle. So this is like where I feel, okay, we are responsible because our governments continue doing this. So that's why we also have the power to change this, because we have chosen those politicians and they are per law our representatives. They must listen to us. So that's why a lot of call to action which is running through my project is actually a call to put pressure on politicians. And given that on the international scene, from the biggest players, Germany's position is the most disappointing one. Like every day they're losing their face internationally. So there is a lot of call to action. And yesterday I have co-created a website where you find a template to German government together with the emails of all politicians, where any person can come and within 2 minutes you will have your email ready. It is a little bit different to initiative which Katerina was doing, because they have sent basically a message to 2,000 politicians, where I want every politician to receive 2,000 messages in their inbox for people of Germany. So this is basically the other way around. So I will share with you the link to this. And if any of you has some connections to Germany, kindly share it with all your networks, because this is the only way how we can be so loud that they cannot ignore us, that they will need to listen to us, and they cannot simply silently proceed with their cynical agenda, because they only can do it if we are silent, if we look away, if we pretend politics is not our thing. It is our thing. So this is like where I am right now. I have shared with you a little bit already in the chat where I am, and if any of you can help me with the connections to people who have ideas how we can make sure that politicians are listening to us and don't ignore, please reach out, because Germany is this critical space. So this is like my message number one. And there is a second message, my project on Instagram. I will share the link. Please follow it. Please help to spread the word. The more ears our project is having, the more impact potentially it will have, because there are continuous some call to actions. If you also know someone who can be a multiplier, who can share the powerful video there, please kind of feel yourself empowered to be a little ambassador for this project. All help is very welcome. And last but not least, my classmate, who is a medical doctor in Kyiv in Ukraine, he had already been engaged in collecting a lot of medical supplies for his fellow doctors who are basically there on the ground, doing their work in the situation of the highest danger. Right now, he has a little fundraiser to collect funds for 10 helmets for doctors. So it is like right now, like deadline is tomorrow, it is half full. So if it is possible, maybe you will be able to support with some little amount and help him. I know this person personally, he is for real, he really has like this capacity to help people on the ground. So feel free to support, or maybe spread the word, because for one person it is a lot, but for all of us together it might be doable. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Julia. And it's really totally important now work in Germany, and we continue this also conversation about European policy and what institutions we must push more. European Parliament or Bundestag or land tax, or for example, directly people from other European countries, maybe Mr. Pizon also explain us what strategy will be better. Now I ask to have a word Uriel Stern. He also worked with humanitarian projects for Irpin, and now he in the United States. And then we will move in forward to Mrs. Irina Miroshnik about her initiative, and also she maybe she also explained her position about how business help from Europe to Ukraine, and then we will move in forward for with other speakers. Thank you, Uriel. Your 5 minutes, please. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I see some people meeting me and now me, like founder of Foundation Kvitna, non-government Foundation Kvitna. Kvitna is 6 years old non-profit organization in Ukraine. We're working for healthy and happy women, Ukrainian women. It's usually we're working for a program every year checking against breast cancer. But you know, in the time of the war, we change some our mission. Сейчас я перейду на российскую мову, потому что некоторые вещи я на английском языке медицински не могу рассказать. Сегодня происходит страшная гуманитарная катастрофа. И хочу говорить в своем направлении украинских женщин, молодых женщин, в связи с тем, что не имеют доступа к осмотрам и гинекологам. Многие женщины сегодня выбрались из подвалов, выбрались от насилия и сегодня переехали в маленькие города, например, из Харькова, из Николаева, из-под Ирпени, находятся сегодня, например, под Одессой. И вчера я получил страшнейшее письмо от врача-гинеколога из Киева, он находится там. Эти женщины прибывают, 80% молодые женщины с кистами, с кровотечениями, в связи с тем, что в том городке под Одессой нет никакого современного оборудования, их просто режут, как это резали в 19 веке. Женщины теряют детей, женщин калечат. И, к сожалению, никто этой проблемой сегодня не занимается по перемещению оборудования в эти центры. Звонил мне врач, он известный врач-гинеколог, религиозная людина. И просто крик о помощи. И вот сегодня это очень большая проблема, что женщины Украины не имеют доступа к нормальным осмотрам и гинекологическому обслуживанию в тех местах, где находятся они. А украинские женщины – это не только здоровье нации, украинские женщины – это и будущность нации. И он говорит, что 80%...
I will translate if one moment. Yeah. So Uriel, now he based in the United States, but he is head of big foundation, Kvitna, and I also used to help this foundation. It's foundation about women's health. And now he work on two projects. So first, it's project of supporting medicines and equipment for hospitals. And he know directly what this critical situation with women's health, not only with women who was raped or who have like military war crimes against them and their child. It also wasn't, Nadia also mentioned about it, but also with women who from villages and who haven't opportunity to go to good obliged and to have this help. And that's why now they go to like regional hospitals. There are no normally techniques, no normally equipment to cure them. And that's why like in Middle Ages, they have operations with very ancient methods, and now Uriel work also on moving equipment to these regional hospitals. But hospitals, it's, you know, it's not like US hospitals, because many people from Europe and from US understand that in villages it's like little hospitals. It's not hospitals, it's really like one room with one knife for surgery, you know, so it's not hospitals like in US. And maybe Uriel also share it to you. So the question of helping this obliging and helping to prevent women's health, it's also important because now women lose their child because of this lack of equipment and doctors there.
No, it's tragedy, and yesterday I spoke with the doctor. I can ability to send to this small town so many emergencies and move these girls. It's girls and you know, it's girls and women to Kiev, but about the critical psychology condition, we can't do this. And every day, who spoke about the every day, like 10, 15 women need assistance. And in Kiev, this operation is, you know, is the 30 minutes, because need some you know, modern equipment is 30 minutes, and woman can you know, to next day they start the working and the back to usual life, you know. And because they don't have some special equipment, is some small amount, $80,000. They working like you know, it was Soviet Union before Gorbachev time. Yes. And the second my project, because the Kvitna Foundation is very clear foundation in Ukraine, it's 6 years, and people believe me, people believe our organization, because we open and clear working with finance and sponsors. Mayor of Irpin give me position is like working for support today people in Irpin. Irpin was a beautiful town near the Kiev. Also yesterday, we know we have bad celebration about Chernobyl. And maybe people don't know is Irpin is receive most radiation for Chernobyl in this time. And it was beautiful, beautiful small city, 70,000 people. And right now they lose. The 1,000 people lose because everybody know is Bucha, but you know Bucha is right now is Irpin is situation about destroyed. The town destroyed is homes is more, you know, the more terrible from Bucha, like 1,000 people, 1,000 families is destroyed his house, and from the 70,000 people is right now only 4,000 people in Irpin. And usually is senior citizens, they need immediately assistance medicine because any pharmacy today is not open in Irpin, any pharmacy today. And we bring right now some support from Kyiv. We immediately want to open, we have the 1,000 square meter property right now in Irpin, and open some humanitarian support, food, medication, and also is you know some else I don't know, because I start working on this tomorrow, and we today start. I start open tomorrow, yesterday, sorry, and we today start distribution of medicine. There is everybody is understand is the people that stay right now in Irpin is most usual is senior citizen people, because from 70,000, you know, to 4,000 is terrible.
Yes,
okay.
and not better situation in Kherson region, because there it's occupied and there are no opportunity to take medicines and to take food directly. I also wanted to mention about this region because we forgot that people have their not the best situation.
No, because Kvitna already we have we open in start on the war organization, and you know, the 20 people today working for distribution medicine and food in Kyiv. I'm also open this organization, but we have good support for any international sponsor for this organization in Kyiv. But the one line I give for the Irpin right now, one line of call center I give to Irpin, and we start distribution from today the medicine and yet.
Thank you, Uriel, and please also share your projects on our platform. Some people also give information to web chat about the project, so please share. And I think that it's really important to work on women's health because it's our future. Thank you one more time. Thank you for your work in Irpin and fundraising in the United States. And now we're moving forward to Irina and I think to Eric, because they work on like a vector of fighting with helping of other business communities, and also Irina have strong connections in business communities in Europe. So can you please explain your part of work and maybe also add something about Julia position on Germany, because now this country also must have a main voice in our situation. And then we will go to Eric, and he explained his work also in his project directly in Ukraine, but it's also internationally. And then we are moving also to initiatives of volunteers in Europe. And after all Ukrainian conversation, we will have interesting presentation from Candle Coffee, a great lawyer with history from United States, and he will explain maybe his conclusion position of United States. Eric Arnold position from Europe, because he worked also for a long time in power, and also position of Alexander, who also worked for a long time with Germany and now volunteers. So Irina, please, for your 5 minutes. Thank you for joining us.
Да, хорошо, Катя, переводите, пожалуйста, потому что, наверное,
Okay.
хочется много сказать за короткое время.
Okay.
Я из бизнеса, я не политик, я никогда не занималась политической деятельностью. Ну, в силу того, что у нас предприятие очень большое и огромные объемы были экспорта и импорта, и мы работали всегда с лидерами в нашей отрасли, как с поставщиками, так и с клиентами. Ну, у меня прямые контакты, прямые связи, прямые личные там отношения с собственниками, SEO, ну, с людьми, которые принимают решения. То есть, поэтому первое, вот что мне пришло, когда началась бомбежка, я увидела это ночью, мне дети позвонили, я в Риге сегодня, и сказали: мама, Киев бомбят. Ну, я начала обзванивать всех своих партнеров. Кать, давайте переводите.
So Irina asked me to translate to be more quickly and she working for a long time worldwide with her business, and of course she understands all this like supply chains, and when war started, her family called to her, and she was working in Riga, in Riga, and that's why, of course, after war started, she also have very direct work with people whom she worked previously with in her international business, and she have quite big business in Ukraine.
Да, для меня было важно, чтобы они немедленно остановили любой бизнес с Россией, в России и с Россией. Я прекрасно знаю, какие у них объемы, какие были инвестиции. И, ну, скажем, я горда тем, что в нашей комьюнити действительно есть моральные, ответственные люди, и 25% из нашего всего вот бизнеса мирового, не только европейского, они на второй-третий день остановили все поставки и любые контракты и лицензии с Россией, и, скажем, в течение месяца прекратили работу на своих заводах, ну, выполнив нормы законодательства Российской Федерации.
So the main aim of this work in her business community and international business were immediately stop working of business in Russia, and she worked a lot on this main aim. Yes, so stop working of big company in Russia, and I think that Eric do also many work on this sector, and we will have his position, and also 25% of business associations which Irina also working in, and you can also explore all these associations in her little presentation in document. 25% stop work in Russia. Of course, they do it's by Russian law, but they stop in work, and it's good result.
Ну, я считаю, что это плохой результат на самом деле, и продолжаю проводить переговоры, и, ну, вот для меня, вот, скажем, как у Юли есть большая задача, вот задачей для меня является объяснить собственникам и SEO больших моих партнеров, что нужно, сегодня нужно сказать, работать все-таки, давать оружие Украине и давить на правительство Австрии, Германии, Италии и Франции с целью, чтобы они помогали не только гуманитарно, а все-таки предоставляли военную помощь и прекратили платить ежедневно за нефть и газ. Я просто счетчик у себя включила на экране компьютера и каждый день ужасаюсь этим огромным цифрам. То есть это моя стратегическая задача, я над ней работаю.
I see. So Irina said that for her 25% it's not not good variant, not good result. That's why she worked to moving forward to block more business in Russia, and she worked a lot in this sector.
И самое главное, что эти люди, это огромные миллиардные компании, влияют на политиков Европы. И для меня важно, чтобы они поменяли свое мнение и тоже на них влияли. То есть это то, что очень важно.
And it's very important that all these companies, they have a great influence to politicians because they also invest to economy of these countries. It's very important work through business to public policy.
Это стратегическая задача. Теперь вот, как все сказали, по мере возникновения проблем мы пытаемся каким-то образом эти проблемы решить. То есть у меня в нашей ассоциации, которая в Украине, к сожалению, это все техногенно опасные предприятия, и в первый же день войны они все были остановлены.
Yeah, it's important that all these manufacturers, it's important like technogenic manufacturers, and they all stopped in the first period of war because it's chemical institutions. Yeah.
Chemical, да, предприятия. И только сегодня в Киеве начинает завод Укрпластик какие-то отдельные цеха загружать, и то есть отрасль стоит. И сегодня я не могу им помочь ничем, потому что они еще не начали работать.
Yes, and now also first like plastic production moving forward, but now I can't help. You mean supply chains, да? Ну, потоки сырья.
Ну, то есть я не могу, им пока нечем помочь. Нет, они стоят из-за техногенной опасности. Это техногенная... У нас наше предприятие было уровень техногенной опасности и страховка, как Чернобыльская АЭС.
I see. So all these manufacturers stopping because they like have technogenic issues and they can't work because we have technogenic disaster in Ukraine. So it's like Chernobyl in one period.
Поэтому, к сожалению, сегодня помочь можно только, нечем помогать. Вопросы, которые я видела, решали. То есть мы увидели, что женщинам нужна действительно психологическая помощь, юридическая помощь, психологическая помощь, потому что многие из женщин, попадая в Европу, не понимают ни правил, ни норм, и попадают, в общем-то, для начала им нужна психологическая помощь, и второе, очень часто, когда их берут на работу, их обманывают.
And it's also very important to mention the question about rights of people, rights of people who are refugees, because sometimes they go to the job and they just cheated also in European country, and maybe also Paula Schwartz can add some information about that because she also worked with refugees and she German Greek. Now she will have a little speech from airplane also joining us. Yeah.
То есть даже если их просто берут на работу, даже официально, что бывает тоже, им предлагают зарплату в 2 раза ниже рынка, либо предлагают условия, в общем-то, совершенно, фактически рабские условия труда, которые никогда бы не предложили гражданину этой страны. И
It's very important that for some people they also give opportunity to work, but it's almost slavery work, and nobody from European Union can work in these conditions and for this money. And it's also a big issue which we must work in Europe.
Поэтому мы собрали полностью с помощью латвийской ассоциации, организации помощи женщинам, собрали по всей Европе и частично там в Канаде информацию о всех центрах помощи женщинам. Я просто поделюсь с вами. И мы обзвонили всех, только в некоторых нет переводчика, и мы, в общем-то, давали телефоны переводчиков, которые знают язык, для того, чтобы можно было работать с украинскими женщинами там, в разных странах. Кстати, говорили об этой проблеме, что нет языка, нет, нет возможности вообще помочь. Что... Кать,
I think so.
переведи.
It's also very important to have translators and to help women with work issues because it's needed big teams. And I understand that if Irina also have some help from you, from your point, it's will be perfect. Irina, can we wait for 2 minutes Paula Schwarz, because now she's in an airplane and she wanted to add something to your message. Paula, I know that's not you now in airplane, so can you please connect with voice? And I know that your work and work of Irina, it's also connected because you also work with refugees. And can you please explain a little bit about your work, and then we also will finish with Irina conversation, because I know that you're in airplane. I see. Okay, Paula will join maybe a little later, maybe in airplane, it's not good connection. Irina, Paula asked also, maybe she said that you have some directly projects together about these women's issues and refugees. Can you please explain also this issue to all our audience, please?
Хочешь, я шире раскрыла этот вопрос, да?
Просто Паула попросила, ну, что вы знакомы, и тоже вот какие-то совместные проекты по женским... Еще именно Ирина Капаница. I see.
Да,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, so
Паула,
да,
информация Паулы нам тоже помогла, мы ее включили в единый реестр, который распространяем, ну, по всем нашим комьюнити женским, со всеми адвокатами, со всеми волонтерами эта информация есть. Давайте я скажу ту проблему, которая, вот две проблемы, которые большие, я вижу. Мы говорили о том, что очень агрессивная пропаганда идет в Европе, агрессивная пропаганда — это одно. Есть очень плохой и неприятный момент. Европейские средства массовой информации не пропускают всю информацию об Украине. Они говорят только о самых таких нежных проблемах или показывают самые нежные фотографии. Они не рассказывают о 140 тысячах уворованных детей. Только вчера появилась информация. Никто об этом не знает. Они не рассказывают о том, что воруют наших мужчин, воруют женщин. Они не говорят о том, что Россия осуществляет фактически преступление не просто геноцид, да, а преступление, это уже называется там воровство людей и торговля людьми. То есть проблема, я не знаю, пока я не понимаю, как ее решить. То есть я использую социальные сети, именно донести до всех тот ужас преступлений, которые происходят. В Риге люди не знают о том, что происходит. Я нахожусь в Риге.
It's also very important to add to Anna's comments that, you know, in press, we sometimes have the most softly information about war, but we haven't reality, because with Nadia, we starting conversation with all this massacre and all these horrible things, but we have the same horrible things in Europe. For example, human trafficking and violation of human rights. It's also happened in Ukraine. It's also happened in Europe with Ukrainians, and we must talk. Kidnapping of people.
Like North Korea and Japanese, yeah?
Yeah, it's
Why?
kidnapping also not in Ukraine, for example, because I'm explained previously about kidnapping in Kherson region, but now it's occupied by Russia and they kidnap activists. But it's also the same in Mariupol, and the same it can happen all over Ukraine because these agents very active. I'm also said to you honorably that one agent of FSB also worked in my office in one period of life, and he was on internship, and after war stopped, I see news that it was agent. So it's near us, and we must understand that in European Union also some mobs groups work with and violate human rights, kids' rights, and unfortunately it's true, and we must work against it. And да, и вы начали с того, что вот еще пропаганда как бы работает.
Да, я хочу, то есть я пока вот, я не понимаю, каким образом достучаться до средств массовой информации мировых, понимая, что Россия и российские олигархи очень хорошо платят всевозможным агентствам. То есть я не понимаю, как преломить эту стену, если у кого-то там будут какие-то предложения, давайте, я знаю, что многие из нас этим занимаются вот здесь, да, то есть пытаются донести эту правду, но я столкнулась с тем, что конкретный пример, компания HP, все мы ее знаем, миллиардная компания, да, они были, скажем, одни из первых, с кем я переговорила 25 февраля, и они моментально отреагировали, потому что это компания, собственники в Израиле, она, то есть адрес регистрации Израиля, они знают, что такое геноцид, они знают, что такое Холокост. Они не могут опубликовать статьи своего сотрудника, который директор по Западной и Восточной Европе, и он вернулся в Украину, он военный, он сегодня уже служит в украинской армии, воюет. Они не могут со своими ресурсами опубликовать его статью, либо в каком-то другом виде сделать, чтобы у него взяли интервью, как у военного, как у человека, который там 8 MBA имеет и которого знает весь мир. Вот этот момент то есть есть какая-то то есть деньги для СМИ важнее российских олигархов, чем правда, которая сегодня существует. Либо правда слишком тяжелая.
Все европейские СМИ или конкретно там?
Все. То есть я напрямую общалась, и вот сегодня, скажем, на протяжении этой недели мы напрямую общаемся с отделом HP, который занимается медиа, маркетингом и всем остальным. Я разговариваю с директором HP, президентом HP, непробиваемая стена.
I see.
То есть они не хотят говорить настоящую правду, полную правду.
Irina said that it's, on her point of view, biggest problem that now Russian oligarchs pay a lot of money to press, and I can prove also it because I work with media in Europe. All on her position, it's all in Europe. So they blocked really stories, and even she explained one situation of HP. HP computers very popular, and they have direct
only computers, not only computers, machinery.
HP machinery, like Hewlett-Packard. And Hewlett-Packard also trying to do some articles from their employees from Ukraine, and even from their Israeli office, they can't do that because informational agencies in Europe also blocked this information because it's shocked. So it's only one example of this work, and there's business community also worked to show this real situation, to show this real situation to European press. And чтобы финализировать, Ирина, вот как вы считаете, самые крупные страны, Германия, Франция, вот как там во Франции выборы недавно прошли, насколько там давление бизнеса будет существенно для того, чтобы перевернуть эту ситуацию, чтобы избиратели требовали поддержки Украины?
Для меня Франция вообще темная страна. Помня опыт Второй мировой войны, я понимаю, что для того, чтобы французы проснулись, должно произойти что-то страшное. Я больше надеюсь все-таки на Германию, Австрию, Швейцарию. Ну вот,
Почему?
если мы говорим о тех странах, которые нужно еще подтолкнуть активным действиям.
А почему? Почему Германия, Австрия,
Ну,
Швейцария?
потому что, это мое мнение. То есть сегодня, смотрите, у нас есть Германия, Австрия, Швейцария и Франция. Это страны, которые, фактически препятствуют. Мы говорим о политиках, да, не о людях. То есть они фактически препятствуют военной помощи Украине. Да, они фактически препятствуют эмбарго на нефть и газ и так далее. Вот во Франции я не знаю, что сказать французам. Я не понимаю, то есть для меня непонятно. Я понимаю, что сказать аудитории немецкоговорящей, я их понимаю ментально, поэтому я понимаю, что ему можно объяснить. И можно напомнить историю прошлого этого. Можно объяснить, что неизбежно, что завтра не будет. Они, если мы говорим о бизнесе, они все прагматики, и они просто очень боятся отказаться от своих, вернее, очень боятся признать тот факт, что война уже наступила, и мир будет только после победы. Для них, они это пока еще боятся признать. Я понимаю, как им это объяснить, и я понимаю, что здесь есть успех.
Yeah, I will translate. I ask Irina that from her opinion of contacting with European business, what she's thinking about France, Germany. And she said that France, she don't understand very deeply, but she thinks that Germany, Switzerland, Austria, it's the main countries which blocks solution for Ukraine, and which is politician from these countries, as we mentioned previously, it's most important to do right position in European Union for support for Ukraine. And she also worked with businessmen from this country to do this process more effective. Yeah, thank you, Irina, and thank you for your opinion. I hope
Давай я
that...
скажу одну проблему. Еще одна проблема, которую я поняла вчера. Эти 140 тысяч детей, которые украли, в Украине возбуждены уголовные дела, но я не нашла ни в одном ведомстве Украины информации о том, что кто-нибудь нанял специализированную компанию, которая будет этих детей искать. То есть и давайте озвучим эту проблему.
Вы имеете в виду, украли в Россию, вот тех, которых вывезли, да, вы имеете
в
в виду?
Россию, конечно,
Да.
украли. 149 тысяч – это вчерашняя цифра омбудсмена.
Yeah, Irina also wanted to give to you information and to give this to discussion that 139,000 child was kidnapped, so they was pressed and taken to Russian territory, but it's kidnapping. And now not every detective, international detective agency or law agency work with this issue, but it's very...
Уголовные дела возбуждены по каждому ребенку.
Ну, и в Украине.
Criminal head for every kids.
Але це по українському законодавству.
Хорошо, да, по украинскому закону, но поиском таких людей не занимается ни полиция, ни прокуратура. Это занимаются специализированные детективные агентства, американские, английские, которые имеют лицензии и огромный опыт в поиске детей и в трафике, блокировании трафика и так далее. Вот я не нашла вчера, я обзванивала полностью всех у нас в правительстве, в службах, я не нашла ни одного следа, что есть хоть один контракт, либо намерение подписать эти договора и начать поиск этих детей. Я думаю, что это очень важно начинать об этом говорить. Это то, что ровно через месяц с этими детьми может произойти все, что угодно. Куда их отдали? Сексуальное рабство?
Irina mentioned that on Ukrainian side, of course, Ukrainian General Attorney and Ukrainian police start these cases and for every child, so on every child. But we need to help from people from European Union who are professionals in this question and who will help to find these child, because we don't know where is they now in Russia? So maybe they in slavery. And it's interesting question. Maybe also Candle Coffee, as famous lawyer, have some position about that. Okay, thank you. And we move into Eric. And Eric also working like the similar sector. He fighting against Russian business, but in tech sector. So Eric, can you please represent a little bit about that, and also maybe connect these terms about European position and how we can do more pressure to their business, to do more pressure to their public policy. Thank you for your patience. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Katerina, for having me. Can you hear me well?
Perfectly.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm a US citizen, actually spent many years in Silicon Valley, and I'm in Kiev. I run a software company called Private Tech Network. So we, before war, had about 50 software developers here in Kiev. I also was CEO of Credit Suisse. It's an investment bank. We did quite a lot of deals and financing specifically for Ukraine. I stayed here in Kiev, basically helping to fight. And on day one, I think everybody was in shock. So once we realized this is a full-scale war, it became clear that Putin wants to grab all of Ukraine. I actually attempted to write letters to people I know in Russia, to relatives, explaining the situation and somehow hoping people will take on the streets in Moscow. And then after several days, we just realized it's totally pointless. So I joined Economic Warfront, actually like Irina, writing letters to CEOs globally of the companies and asking to stop any business in Russia. And our petition was, if company continues to do business in Russia, every tax dollar they pay to Russian government supports killing of Ukrainian children and civilians. And in 21st century, it's immoral and against any human values, and they should stop business immediately. So we were making these letters, and of course the problem with sanctions, if you look at sanctions, they do work, they're extremely helpful, but they're really slow. Especially what happens with Western sanctions. They implement sanctions level 1, and then Russians, they continue to attack, and they destroyed city Chernihiv. And the sanctions raised again, level 2, and they continue their crimes, and then a lot of civilians in Bucha killed. And so on, they increase sanctions, and city of Mariupol is destroyed, and war is still on. So we realized sanctions are very slow, the speed, because every day here on the ground matters. The decision was to go to the top level CEOs, kind of one by one, with the petition letter asking to stop all business. I think one challenge is to analyze who works in Russia. It's a huge country, huge economy. So if you ask question, what are the global banks working in Russia, you come up with a list of a few hundred banks. And then you go sector by sector. So we went to a lot of CEOs asking to stop business, including companies, including stock exchanges like London Stock Exchange, like investment funds. We went to different jurisdictions, not only US, but obviously UK, Switzerland, Monaco, Singapore, and other places. I personally did maybe more than 1,000 letters. We were writing updates on who stayed and who still keeps working in Russia. And also for companies and CEOs, it was really important to know the situation, because I think people didn't realize, especially in the first day, that this scale of war and this scale of crime is happening in Ukraine, in the middle of Europe. So we put together a package kind of detailing the crimes and scale of the war. And this is still ongoing work. I think now a tsunami of sanctions started, and some of these economic bullets, they definitely hit right on. There was a good discussion about HP, and we wrote a CEO letter, Enrique Lores, on Friday, and it took him 2 days. On Tuesday, he announced that HP stops all business in Russia. Obviously, this is a difficult decision for the company. It's something like $5 billion business. I think impact is huge, because HP systems, if you look at HP, they're in telecoms and banks, they're in their space programs, and all of this is gone now, right? And this is just one company. And on Tuesday, it was on analyst call on Yahoo Finance. And some other examples, like Switzerland, for example. I think Switzerland broke neutrality in 200 years. You remember that during Second World War, Switzerland was totally neutral. And now they took the side of the country in conflict. And I think this was also because a lot of communication. It's not only myself. I think there is a group of people, probably close to 50 people doing this. So in Switzerland, we went to people in UBS, Credit Suisse, a lot of banks, you know, some central bank people. And for Switzerland, the speed was unprecedented. Really, everything is so slow in Switzerland. Everything takes weeks or months. And here they really moved fast. So it was really unprecedented positive result for Ukraine. And I think now a tsunami of sanctions started. I think because this is a war, we really want to destroy economy, cancel it. And the impact of sanctions is really huge. So you could see companies being delisted from stock exchanges. If you look at some of those Russian oligarchs, you know, take a look at Yandex, right? Yandex is listed London company, $15 billion. And the guy who founded Yandex was worth something like 3 billion. And now Yandex is delisted, so its stock is essentially waste paper. So 15 billion of Yandex is now zero. And a lot of other companies were delisted. If you look at stock of Sberbank, it's also close to zero now. And this is the biggest biggest bank in the country. So economic fallout is huge. I think the work is still on. I keep compiling names of companies that still work in Russia. Also, a good example is Binance. Once a lot of banks stopped payments in Russia, Binance, which is a big crypto processor, big crypto payment, we wrote letter to CEO, founder of Binance, and he stopped all business in Russia in something like 3 or 4 days. It was gone. So this is working. I think because of the scale and how big Russia is, it's still work in progress. Will take time, but for sure they're facing economic fallout in trillions of dollars. They're facing, I would say, it's nuclear holocaust in the economy. You know, millions unemployed, country disconnected from all modern technologies, from future programs like fintech, Binance, etc. So this is what's happening. Updates on the Facebook. I'm also in discussions about setting up renovation fund for Ukraine and identifying partners, including private and institutional companies that will participate. Because I think as heart of this war and awful, we need to think about future and rebuilding Ukraine.
Thank you. And I have one more question. Here in United States, many people have discussions that like all companies who have employees in Russia, now they restructurize their companies because it's not like good news to have even employees in Russia when they trying to move in their employees from Russia to other countries. So do you see this in your sector? And secondly, also if we connect conversation about oil and gas, which Irina mentioned in Europe, do you see which companies more active in this let's say trade ban, or going from Russia market? It's American companies or it's European companies, and maybe you will give some direct examples and also give to us examples how we can help it. So maybe go to demonstration against this company, or what's the main methods of pressure to them to go from Russia.
On your first question, Katerina, some companies indeed, they do move out the employees from Russia. But then you have to look at the scale. And the scale, for example, like Credit Suisse, we used to have office, something like 1,000 people in Moscow, right? Now 90% of these people is gone. You look at all the consulting companies like PwC, KPMG, they used to employ thousands of people in Russia. Most of them is gone. So some companies do move out people, but to move out all staff is absolutely impossible, looking at the scale of what's happening. But also, if you look at automotive companies or dealerships, they used to employ tens of thousands of people. But then you also look, so I think this is happening, but it's not going to solve the problem of Russian isolation. And obviously, it's not possible to move all employees from Russia. And then on the second question, oil and gas in Russia, obviously there are big oil and gas companies, and now all of them are delisted. This is number one. Then if you look at technology side, a lot of Russian oil and gas relied on US technology, specifically two companies, Schlumberger and Halliburton. You know, things like horizontal drilling technologies, things like exploration, etc. And these companies joined sanctions. So it means that Russian oil and gas will not have US modern technology. It's gone, done. And they cannot rebuild, obviously, themselves, because again, all the components are coming from US or Europe. And then we also lobby for oil embargo. I was in quite a lot of discussions. The problem is some of the dependence of European countries like Austria or Germany is so huge that I think these people are afraid to disconnect immediately from oil and gas. But I think it's important to apply pressure because I think it will take time. But many companies, they did cut contracts in oil and gas. I think a lot of deals are still done in places like India. They're buying Russian oil with huge discounts. There is specifically a company, India Oil and Gas. We're trying to apply some pressure on them via London. And then, of course, there are some dealings in Dubai because, like somebody said on the call, I think a lot of Russians moved to Dubai, including some businesses, and some of the Dubai banks, they continue working with Russia. But oil and gas embargo, we are calling for complete shutdown of Russia and isolation. This is still going on given the volume, but I think eventually we'll get there. We need to apply pressure. How to apply pressure? We write letters to CEOs. I think if you have some personal connections, always good to discuss, but also demonstrations. I think like this French retail chain, Auchan, they initially refused to remove from Russia. But then I think some of the employees in Kiev were killed and people started to demonstrate. And it took them a month, but they shut down operation in Russia. So this works. Definitely people realize it's immoral to work with Russia when this regime is in power. And I think HP made a nice statement that this is not compatible with practices of social and business responsibility, which was set as our basic principle set by our founders, and they made it official in the analyst call, despite huge loss of business. So people are making choices. I think there is no middle now. It's either black or white, right? One side or another.
True, and I know about many initiatives about like blocking Russian business, and also here in DC near White House, also on demonstrations, we mentioned that business must go from Russian market, and now it's also connected with like block all banks of Russia from SWIFT. Not only some banks, but all banks. Thank you, Eric, for your work. And
yeah, it's now, Katerina, not about business, but really about moral value, because they keep killing civilians or children, you know, committing these unimaginable crimes. And obviously now many people realize, you know, this regime, not only war, I mean, they want war to be stopped and peace and all people, you know, return back to Ukraine, but we want regime to be gone and having them accountable. And it's not obviously not only Putin, but a whole bunch of people around Putin, his war generals, maybe media, they all need to go to trial.
But also the same in Belarus. Yeah, also the same in Belarus.
Belarus, yes, Lukashenko, they're using Belarus to shoot rockets at Ukraine. He's a war criminal.
Yes. Thank you, Eric, one more time, and please share also. I add information about your projects also to description, but as other participants, also feel free to share this information to chat. And now we are looking for small comments from Alexander and Pavel, because they have also position about working on our initiative in Germany. So how they like have experience and how we do pressure to German people, like in this vector, or to have more refugees places or to have more weapons from Germany. So please, and Alexander also have his projects in Kiev with helping of with humanitarian aid, with territorial army. So please, Alexander, then Pavel. Yeah, I see also Wona, Andrei, and Vadim also wanna to have some comments after Alexander and Pavel, and in conclusion we will have candle coffee speech and reflection, and also his explanation about Biden's program in legal way, how it works in the United States. So please, Alexander, firstly.
Have a nice day. Thank you for inviting at the outset of our conversation. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Alexander Khmara. I am CEO of Hungarian company. It's a small IT company. We base it in Kiev. It's not big. It's 20 people. And also my second experience, I'm head of board of Ukrainian National Importer Association. During 7 years, I make big business with foreign economic activity in international trading, and I think I know a lot of things of what we can use today, and so I make this right now. What I can to tell you, first of all, thank you, Katerina, for inviting me, and thank you for everyone. Really, it's a terrible time right now, but I hope we will find solutions, and God bless us. But we need time. We need to be consequence, yes, and cows. I think. Sorry, we need to be cows. And first of all, I would like to explain. I have one project with my team. We built the project. We call this project Spilno. Spilno, it's Ukrainian, but it's together. So it's a platform. It's a big IT platform. I hope next week we will get the bank ID for verification. So everyone who can help or who need help can go to our platform. It's for example, humanitarian aid or handyman, or I don't know, how to say, physiological things, and for delivery solutions. One part of people can help, second part of people needs, and it's all for free. Now we make with our national bank ID, because it's very important for verification. Everyone who will go to our platform, and I will send to you all information by details about this project. I hope it's to be some cause to new culture, to new institutes of our learning, of our friendship, and maybe it will be good to some NGO organizations. It's be next week, I hope, everything, because 2 weeks, first 2 weeks of this terrible situations. For example, 24th of February, my son, he has two years, yes, and it's big it's birthday in my mind will be of, I think, during all my life. And the first 2 weeks, I tried to use all my contacts, all my experience in European countries, because 5 years I lived in Germany and in Hungarian, Budapest. We made a lot of for our armed force, for our people, but then I think that I remember that this situation when we with my business partner, we bought more like 300 helms, body armor, and also I have good connections in our customs for custom cleanings. And I remember this situation. Please, the officer called me and asked me, please give me the paperwork, sanitary invoice, blah, 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 blah. I said, look, we have a big problem right now in Ukraine. You asked me about something. I don't know. It's what you want exactly. And I said about this. I told about this situation because it's my experience, and it's one of things. But I know a lot of it's 1,000 people who every day try to help us. But our regulations, we built this regulation more like 50 years. Corruption, I don't know them, something. How
You
to
mean
say,
customs regulation, yeah.
Yes, kumovstvo, something like that. And I think it's to be good opportunities to break this system and move ahead with clean and with the flower minds.
Hope so. Thank you, Alexander. Yeah, thank you. We must move in a little bit quickly in our conversation, because also Candle Coffee waiting. So please, short comments from Pavel about also work in Germany. And then also I will ask Irina, for a long time waiting. She will explain her project with Paula Schwartz, because Paula like left on airplane. And then comments from people who have like 1 or 2 comments, and then Candle Coffee. If I miss someone, please send to me a message to our chat. So Pavel, please, your time.
Добрий день, шановні друзі. Я б хотів сказати всім дякую за те, що ми зібралися тут для того, щоб обговорювати такі важливі питання. And I thanked to all colleagues in order that we are at this conference, and I appreciate it. I wanna tell about my experience in communications with German politics. And first of all, I want to say that similar Germans support Ukrainians, and support of providing and organizing the delivery of heavy weapons to Ukraine. I chat with Ukrainian activists in Berlin. I chat with some German politics, and they are united in one position. They support Ukraine. They support of transferring heavy military aid to Ukraine. For example, with these tanks, heavy military artillery. For example, it is air defense systems and others. So I guess the problem is in the government of Germany and the ruling party, Social Democratic Party. And the problem is in Scholz's opinion, in their in their point of view. And some people wants to know why do Scholz slow of transferring heavy weapons to Ukraine, and nobody knows the answer. I believe that German will take the side of good, because now in Ukraine happens war about all democratic world, not only about Ukrainian people, not only about Ukrainian territory, and I'm absolutely sure that this war is is about the defense of all Europe, and Ukraine now defends all democratic vote and all systems that was established after World War II. So thanks for my short comment, and I want to believe that Ukraine will win a great victory, and I'm absolutely sure that Ukraine wins right now, because we are now in defending positions, but I guess we will attack after, for example, after our Western partners will give us the heavy
weapons. Yeah. Thank you, Pavel, for your work. And now I ask Irina to explain her and Paula Schwartz's work, because Paula also half German, half Greece, and also other your projects. Then comments and candle coffee. I think that. And we will end also this part of our conversation. Thank you, Irina, please.
I'll be very short. So part of my job is together with Paula. Paula is my friend whom I met during my activity in White Ribbon Foundation. It's fighting with domestic violence, and now not domestic, now just violence these days. So she's from a huge pharmaceutical German family, Schwarz, and she's absolutely amazing girl, amazing friend. She's a very famous volunteer that helped a lot during the crisis for Syria, during the crisis in Greece, that were all together, and economical and demographical and humanitarian. So recently we used to visit her kind of family island, Samos, which is also famous for being for hosting a huge refugee camp of Syrians and Afghan people. There was an old one refugee camp, and the United Nations also built there a new one of for price like 43 million. And people stay there. They are not allowed to leave the camps. They just stay there. So we wanted to see in our personal eye how it looks like, how it's arranged in another countries, and probably what can be the situation with Ukrainians in other countries. So from the first, one of the directions we do together is from the first days of war. based on her huge international network, as she already also used to be invited to Davos as an international famous volunteer. So basing on her international network, she created few WhatsApp chats, groups. So one was about medical aid supply and help, one was about refugee relocation, and one general like tech solutions for Ukraine, different apps and webs and technical support. All of those chats is over like 250 people, and thanks to them, the very first 2-3 days of the war, we succeed in making like hundreds successful contacts a day, where people from all over the world were able to connect right people. So I tried to add there as much some government people and local, my friends whom I know to be involved very deeply in all these things. We made like hundreds, maybe thousands, very useful connections and arrange a lot of help on medical, on volunteering, on relocating people, on transport, on any kind of needs. So this is one of direction, and she keep helping a lot. Another direction, I've been working with the media, doing some stuff for some certain people from president administration whom I wanted to help with delivering information. And my comment about international media and world media and European media also not so positive, because especially media from Britain and media from Germany, I feel like based on their reaction, based on answers, sometimes they can answer even in rude way, you know, when I send them pictures from like it's what Google link with different folders from all surroundings of Kiev, and I sent to journalists, like maybe over 100 journalists from different countries, and some journalists, unfortunately mainly from Britain and Germany, like from France, they don't pay attention at all, no even small interest. And from those two countries, they sometimes tell me like, oh no, can you please send us something more light, or oh better, can you please comment us situation in Chanel shops with Russians, or for example, oh no, we are not specializing on geopolitical things, but it was about crimes, it was about war crimes pictures. So and sometimes they just quit conversation, sometimes they answer in rude manner like, I told you I'm not interested in this information. So unfortunately I would like to confirm what told Irina, what told Eric previously, that it's real problem. Probably we don't realize for now how huge problem that with Russian propaganda and Russian influence. And personally, me was working in Bell Pottinger, that's used to be one of the biggest world political consulting companies. And as I remember, it was like 8 years ago, 90% of orders and of media were paid by Gazprom. They were like the main client. The same situation I feel partly with intelligence of Britain, and the same. I'm not talking now about some specific governors and people. I'm talking just about these authorities and this. With these departments with whom I have contact and my personal opinion. And so with media, yeah, we need to find out how to knock to them, how to get them, how to touch, I don't know, their heart, their humanity, because it's not now going about, as Eric mentioned, it's now going even not about business, not about who pay money to whom, but it's going about humanity. Are we ready to accept what's going on? Are we ready to live in the same world near when like hundreds kilometers from you happen things like this, like we see, like each of our family and friends see? This is another part and direction. And for now, what I would like to focus in my activity is help and support for small and middle business, especially kind of farmers who based in Ukraine, who are not going to relocate to another country or who want to come back to Ukraine. And I see some investments groups and government and private investment foundations, not a lot, but still they are exist in the world, who are ready to support this direction, because I believe that middle and small and middle business, they can build, rebuild, and like relaunch the economy and support our economy. And so it will help us to keep people inside country. We don't know how long it would take to our way to the victory, to finish the war. I hope as soon as possible, but we never knows. And so also Paula Schwartz, she's going on some conference on Chicago that's supposed to be on 3-4 May, and it's arranged by a famous investor, American one, Mark Saner, and thank him a lot that he made one more Ukrainian panel where Paula with some other friend of us from Poland who just quitted his usual regular job and 100% of his time just help Ukrainians. And they're gonna present their activity, their part of job, and I will ask them also to present some real cases of like 10 or 20 real businesses that need for now some help and support, because there's going to be a conference of future of investors. So this direction I believe to be very, very important the nearest time. Thank you.
You do a great job all over the world, and thanks to Paula. I think that on the next round she will be with us and to represent her projects also in more details, and maybe on this conference you find new partners for this work, like Nancy also wanted to join to work in Portugal. So Andrei, your little comment, but please 1 minute, because the next we have a big speech from Candle Coffee. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Katerina. Do you hear me?
Yes.
So very, very short comment, maybe not for today's discussion, but for future discussion. The first, today we discussed more about European partners, European countries. But based on my experience, I was in Kazakhstan 1 week ago, and I think that we need to collaborate also with Kazakh partners, Kazakh government, and Kazakh enterprises, because right now I had a lot of discussions, and I think that Kazakhstan, after 1 year, maybe also after 1 month, will be a huge market for Russia. Also for transit of oil, for transit of different equipment, including for oil and gas, including for machinery, including for technological, industrial. And I think that our maybe not main goal, if we want to isolate Russia, but we need to isolate across borders. And you know that Kazakhstan has a huge border with Russia. And I think that a lot of financial transition and technical equipment transition will be through Kazakhstan during next months and next year. It's my first comment. And
we can join like liberal Kazakhs to next our conversation. I know a lot of NGOs who like work against Russia. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, and maybe my short personal comment, if it's possible, about my situation, because I'm born in Russia, I have Russian citizenship, and I love Ukraine. I have Ukrainian permanent residential, and maybe more rhetoric question for everybody. Maybe somebody could comment it. So I can't understand how it's possible for me to live in Ukraine or in Russia, because right now I'm between 2 fires, from Russia and from Ukraine. I can't live in Ukraine. I can't live, of course, I don't want to leave Russia, but I can't receive Ukrainian citizenship. And right now, frankly speaking, I'm traveling across the world. And I also, for example, I can stay in Europe because I don't have Ukrainian passport. I think it's a humanitarian problem because it's people who is really love Ukraine, and I'm trying to help to military, to different NGOs, but I can't legalize in country. I think it's a problem. It's not for my, of course, I'm Russia, I'm enemy, I agree with it. But for example, people from different USSR countries, or former USSR countries like Azerbaijan or Kazakhstan, I think it's a problem. And I don't know how it's possible to decide it.
Thank you. I think that it's good times for the next conversation. Now I give to vote for Candle Coffee, who have all this his patient to, and I hope that all this information from Ukrainian side was very useful. And Candle Coffee also a great Ukrainian supporter. He helped with many like advisors of reforms, of democracy development in Ukraine, and he's a great lawyer. So today also Candle wanted to have a speech about new American programs, and we will send also this video not only to American partners but to Ukrainians, and many people wanted to know more about Biden initiatives and how it works for Ukrainian. And please, your conclusions, Candle, we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Katya. This has been an amazing program, and I've learned so much. The way I can try to thank you and your colleagues is to not talk too long, because it's been a couple hours and I don't want to take more time than necessary. But I do want to quickly talk about three US American perspectives from the government, from the media, and then at the human level. At the government level, I think it's fair to say that President Biden has been very, very forward and put a lot of time and energy to this. As you know, his leadership was criticized as we left Afghanistan. But I think in this instance, he is doing as much as he can to try to restore America's role as the leader of the free world. And so I think he believes that Ukraine is absolutely essential to America's role, as well as, of course, his personal concern for the Ukrainian people. And I think you've seen with the military weapons that have been coming in, the extraordinary level of sanctions that have been applied, and of course, the private sector initiatives that Eric was talking about are also quite important. But I think you could say that this administration has really done its utmost, short of sending in troops, to support Ukraine. And there's more they can do, and they're having conversations with President Zelensky. But this is a firm commitment. It will not be changed by the midterm elections. Many people expect that in November, and heaven forbid that there is still a war in November, but none of us know, that in November, the Republicans will probably recapture the legislative part of the government. But Biden will still remain in the White House. He'll still remain responsible for foreign policy. He'll still be responsible for U.S. efforts to support Ukraine's defense. So that is not going to change. And in a country like the U.S., where everyone disagrees with everybody about almost everything, it's been extraordinary to see the consistency with which Americans support the Ukrainian people. I have trouble thinking of anything that we've been so unified about in a very long time. The media overwhelmingly supports Ukraine and is opposed to the war. There are some publications that put more time and energy on it than others. And I'm always concerned with US media that as time goes by, perhaps there will be less attention, and it's very important that attention remain focused. But so far, the media is, I would say, largely united. The people of the United States themselves feel great sympathy and a great sense of connection to the Ukrainian people. The Ukrainian people are seen as heroic, as people who are surprising the world with the strength of their courage and their resistance. And Americans are very, very sympathetic. And you see that, I think, and I want to talk for a minute about President Biden's initiative to welcome up to 100,000 Ukrainian refugees. And I think that number will increase. We've had conversations with officials in the government about the need to increase that. But right now, the number we talk about is 100,000. And it's based on a 2-year program that allows a US sponsor, and the US sponsor can be any citizen, any green card holder who has a certain minimum financial qualification to act as the sponsor. And you don't have to be rich to sponsor a refugee. And then they apply to sponsor a particular individual in Ukraine. And we're hoping that the process of immigration for clearing first the sponsor, the US sponsor has to be approved, and then the individual in Ukraine will work smoothly and quickly. In our immigration system, the backlogs are notorious for delays, but for a brief period, we addressed that by allowing Ukrainians to come in across the Mexican border with a 1-year permission to stay here, and close to 15,000 people came in that way. Now this program is intended to allow a 2-year permission to stay here and be able to get work papers based upon having a US sponsor. And just as an example of the reaction of American business and American people, Goldman Sachs immediately announced a partnership to help mobilize Americans to sponsor. And they've got dozens and dozens of supporting church organizations, people at every level, volunteer lawyers, volunteer citizens are trying to help Ukrainians in every way they can. And so what I've been involved with is more providing volunteer legal services to help people explain their rights and find their way. But we're all in this together in the United States. And hopefully we will all see this together with you in the near future. As that happens, the final thing I wanted to mention, and Irina talked about this somewhat, is rebuilding. I think, Katya, you talked about a Marshall Plan for Ukraine, but there will need to be a program, perhaps in the not too distant, to start rebuilding. And we've already begun some discussions with that. Right now, people in our government are focused on the war and now this new immigration policy, but it's not too early to begin to think and talk and try to advocate for a way to rebuild the devastation in Ukraine and hopefully help the Ukrainian people have their heroism matched by our support, not just in the war effort, but in the rebuilding effort.
Thank you. And can you please also explain a little bit about this laws which was voted 2 weeks ago in Parliament, because not every person in Ukraine understand what it was for. I mean, bills about trade ban, and also a little bit why so long decision making in the United States, because also not for every Ukrainian understandable why, for example, from executive order, we must wait in for procedure, and why, for example, from Parliament, we must wait in White House, you know, some comments about these issues.
Well, our Parliament or our Congress moves very slowly, and it's very difficult to get new laws passed by our Parliament, our Congress. So what has being done is executive orders from the White House, as you described, which then need to be executed at the administrative level by the bureaucracy. Bureaucracies always take time, but I have to say that from the time President Biden announced 100,000 refugees, and they very quickly started letting people in across the Mexican border, to the announcement of the program that has begun as of yesterday, as Monday. By our standards, by our very slow standards, that is light speed. That is a record. And the program has actually fallen into place. And hopefully with the support of American businesses and individuals, the sponsorships will start lining up pretty quickly. The White House has immense power in areas of foreign policy and immigration. So getting things through Congress is very difficult. Getting things from the White House, it's a matter of willpower. And I think there is a very strong will to help the Ukrainian people.
Катерина, немає звуку, включіть звук.
Sorry. What we must do better for advocacy Ukrainian questions. So it's more question about working with American people. So working with media, working with like direct letters, or it's more working with like people in Congress, in Senate, because, for example, we from the last week also wrote letter to every senator and letter with situation about Ukraine. And I also have invitation to 4 meetings for the next week, and other senators also, like 7 letters, they explain about Biden's program, who from Biden's party, from Democrats. But what also many people come to everyday demonstrations, and this week also will be 2 big demonstrations, one with opposition of Belarus, and second like big demonstration of National Mall. What other tools we must use to be more effective and not to go to oblivion, because in some months also this term can go to oblivion in like public understanding and public consciousness, you know?
Yeah, there's a risk of that. Afghanistan was very much in everyone's minds, and then it kind of disappeared. And some of the Afghan refugees have still not been resettled. So it's all the things you're talking about, the demonstrations, the letters, developing relationships with reporters who will continue to write, continue to find new stories to keep in the news. The other thing I would add, and again, this gets back to what you and Irina and others have discussed, is the rebuilding side. Need to stay in touch with Republicans. Right now, the Democrats have the US House and have the Senate. It's probably going to change in November. And it's not too early when we look down the road toward the rebuilding to begin to build relationships on the Republican side. I know that you hate to think that US politics could have be so back and forth, but it's important that this not be seen as an issue for Democrats. This must be seen as issues for all the American people.
Yeah, for sure. For example, we wrote to all politicians, even not only to politicians, but also to Department of State, also to NGOs. So because it's like we must work with all issues. And one more question from me, and I see that also we have a member of Ukrainian Parliament here, Anna Skorokhod, and questions from our colleagues, maybe 2 minutes more. And my question is about Marshall's Plan. So it will be planned like helping to government, or it will be planned like humanitarian aid and wider this humanitarian aid to NGOs, charity foundations, because it's also people don't understand how it will be. And if we will be, I can be direct honest, because I'm not like in parliament, yeah, that we have problems with delivery of this humanitarian aid. We have some problems with inner like political solutions. I mean, like procedures, yeah. So I'm saying that some procedures which now we used, for example, big like opportunities to government business, like державні підприємства, it's government business which is quite corrupted. It's not right solution to give to people humanitarian aid, and also situations that we don't use Ministry of Social Justice to help people in villages. So we have some problems in our country. What we must do to lobby this Marshall Plan and to do it effective, and what institutions must be involved, and maybe what steps we must moving forward, and what institution we must ask, and what documents we must prepare from every region, because today you see politicians from Nikolaev, my father, quite famous politician from Kherson region, and now they fighting for the occupation of Kherson. Many people from here, they also work in Western Ukraine. So what we all must do in procedure, because in value point, we understand this, but in procedure, I need you as lawyer can clarify this process.
Well, the important thing is for you and your colleagues to be involved in the design of the plan, because, and it's painful to give the example, but many billions of dollars went to Haiti after the earthquakes. And yet there seemed to be very little success in delivery and in making the changes that were needed. It is not enough just to spend money, which the US will do. And I believe that this is a good time to reach out to people that we think will be important decision makers in the government appropriations process. Of course, the White House has a lot to say about it, but money is actually, the US government is actually funded through the Congress and through the Senate. And from my standpoint, at least, and again, I hate to keep predicting defeat for the Democrats, but conversations with Republicans who will be involved in the appropriations in the money process with you and your colleagues could be very effective in just beginning to get people to think about a responsible, effective way to provide the help that is going to be needed for Ukraine. And it may be that you think it needs to go to one place, or maybe to different regional centers, to maybe regional governments, as well as NGOs. The plan hasn't been written. I think it's very important that you and your colleagues be sitting there helping to communicate the best design, the best approach.
Thank you. So we must firstly do a think tank about that, yeah, and then as I understand, work with budget committee, yeah, because budget committee, I see. Okay, and it's also budget committee and White House, I think, with foreign budget, yeah, because they represent foreign. Okay, thank you. Colleagues have question, and we have comment from Anna Skorokhod. She is member of Ukrainian Parliament. So if Anna ready, we ready to hear Anna from Ukrainian Parliament. If not, we move into questions.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just came back from the Chernihiv region. I was in the nearest villages to the Chernihiv, and it's like being in a hell, telling the truth, because it's remind me like Khatyn. I guess everybody knows it. Because all villages totally destroyed, and today I have been in the I forgot the word in English, подвал, under the school
basement, in the basement of school.
Yes, thank you. And there was 400 people who died because they doesn't have earth. And there was children who draw on walls, and they stayed there 30 days. And it's I can't explain, because it's totally worse, and it's unbelievable to see what's happening. And I know that everybody knows about Bucha, about Gostomel, Vorzel, Irpin, but there is a lot of places which was under occupation. and they're totally destroyed. Also, I have been on the east in the territories which now fighting with Russians, and in Severodonetsk, Lysychansk, Popasная, Rubezhная, and our guys, they're still standing like heroes, and they fight. But we have to understand that they need our help every day, and every moment, and every minute. And yes, we're very thankful to you that the United States help us with the weapon, with humanitarian aid. But unfortunately, I have to explain. It's very horrible to say nowadays, but it's true because I'm involved in process, what's happening, and during the situation, you can find that someone lost their lives for our freedom, and someone doing corruption, and we can see that a lot of humanitarian aid totally you can find in supermarkets. You can find that a lot of humanitarian aid doesn't came to the places which they need, and it's the biggest problem that because of situation we can control it totally. Especially we work with a lot of also foundations in United States, and I just want to ask you, please don't send us a humanitarian aid which you paid $300,000 for plane to bring it, but for us better if you will help us here. And for us, much more important to have weapon here, and to have, I'm telling the truth, on the east, you even can find soldiers without what to wear. It's terrible, because when you see that someone going by, I don't know, in a like nothing happened. Sorry, I'm very nervous because I saw terrible stuff. And on the east, we can find they doesn't have, I don't know, do you know the stuff which stop the blood? It's very important to any soldiers have the
yeah, I don't remember the name, but I know that like 40% of deaths now it's because we
70.
don't have this.
70.
Oh
I will show you because I'm often there.
It's
and,
quite easy. It's quite very easy stuff, but really,
yes,
yeah.
Tourniquet. It's called tourniquet. It stops blood, and in nowadays 70% of deaths because of losing blood, and we doesn't have it enough. We doesn't have enough medical аптечки. Katya, help me, please. Аптечки. Katya. I just show you. I know that NATO, they have all of it, and we are trying to find everything to help our guys. And I just ask you, don't send us humanitarian aid. Please give to our soldiers this. This is a pack of medicine. The first
aid kit, yeah.
First
aid kit.
Yes, not for cars, not for kids. We need it for soldiers, like a NATO standard. And believe me, it's can save much more lives than something else, really. And I every day I saw guys, I saw how they fight it, and we are all the time trying to help. We trying to support them, and believe us, it's insane in 21st century. See what we see, and it's insane. For me today, when I was there in the village, and I saw everything, and I saw little kids, 1 month, 3 months from the birth, which stay in that place 30 days without light, without normal food, without nothing, and they're alive. And it's like to be in Oswiecim, and or even worse. And I really ask you to help. We really need your help, and we really, we are, for me, it's unbelievable when everything starts, and we are really like one big family. No more any discussion. Everybody like big family without any problems. Everybody help. But of course, since the a lot of time, something changed. But the stuff doesn't change, and fighting on Donbass, in Nikolaev, in Kharkiv, in Kherson, it's terrible. It's terrible what's happening, and we ask you for help, real help. And you have to understand that, yes, money is great, and we're very thankful for your support. But please, if you're sending money, control it, please. Sorry for my speech. I am under emotions, really, because what I see, what a lot, I see a lot, because I've been under bombing many times, and I know what is it, and I know that before death, I don't know, I doesn't have nothing in my mind, but you're all the time trying to help, and I hope very soon we will celebrate our victory, and we will meet each other in Ukraine, in peace, Ukraine.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for your work in Parliament and for your work in the fields. Yeah, I can add to this information that really Russians also use this situation in Kherson, because they use that people haven't any food, and they have lists of like people who take Russian humanitarian aid, and they killed people who wanted to go from Kherson region. It's also true, and unfortunately it's not in press, because there you can't like be journalists there. And about first 8 kids, and about treatment for blood. Yeah, it's really, we need it. And Lina Klebanova, also my friend, she like was producer of Winter on Fire, and we know her very good. She said that even Kiev regional defense, so it's people who are citizens but go to like regional army, haven't helmets and body armor, and they collect money and like do this body armor in Ukraine, because you know they can't export it. It's in Kiev region, not in Kherson, not in Mykolaiv, in Kiev region. And that's why I'm also in the first part of our discussion also said, and in every my meeting, that if you give something, please control that
Yes.
these tools and these aids and this military aid got not only to administrations, but also to direct person, because if people in Kiev region haven't this body armor, and every body armor it's more than $1,000 in Ukraine salary.
Much more now. If it's 4+, it's much more.
Yeah, now it's much more. I know that Ukrainian production, it's like 30,000 hryvnia, so it's 1,200. But of course, imported, it's a more. And Ukrainians haven't this money. Ukrainian salary, it's like in Kiev, $500, and in villages, it's $50 a month. So even less. That's why people haven't money for all these medical kits, and please control all these questions and work with questions which really can save life, like Uriel also represent us projects for women's health and for hospitals. So thank you for your patience.
Can I have some? I have some question? Last one for Candle Coffee.
If Candle Coffee have 5 more minutes, of course, yeah.
Oh.
And Eric also had the one.
What is my question is it possible really to arrange some control of that humanitarian aid, and first of all of that weapons that deliver from USA? Because as I know, it's been delivered, for example, for the storages on territory of Europe, then it's delivered to our western part of Ukraine and to storage, yeah, and that's it. And is it possible to arrange from your side upcoming control? Because I can say I've been involved in that things, but as soon as I've been living like half of my life all over the world, and I have really like a lot of friends, and some of them who've been providing also some military stuff for Ukrainians. They unfortunately, from our side of our government, they face some situations of corruption inside. Like I know that really huge money, we receive really huge money from different countries. Some issues I know personally, some people tell me like amounts of money they send to our accounts. And I know that really a lot of huge stuff arrive from USA. And it's very strange situations because if everything we receive from you, from other countries, would be used properly and delivered properly, I guess we won't need all those volunteers all over Ukraine, all over the world that have to fundraise money and buy for their money. Really, with helmets, with all this stuff, it's stupid but strange problem. So my question is it possible really to arrange on some government level, like control of delivery from our like Lviv district storages to the final points, or no?
Not impossible, but difficult. And I think that to say that the U.S. will be somehow overseeing each delivery would kind of almost could interfere with Ukrainian sovereignty. I think they'd be reluctant to try to tell Ukrainian government exactly what cities, what purposes this must be used. On the other hand, I think they can do more on accountability. There are systems for doing that. It takes a while. And what I was thinking as I was listening to Anna is that maybe if we had a couple very focused issues that we sort of talk about at a very high volume, emphasize, maybe there could be a result. For example, first aid kits and tourniquets. It was kind of shocking to realize how many people are dying because they're bleeding to death. And so if we can target a couple focused issues at the same time, we talk generally about the need for greater controls, maybe we can have an impact. And so I'll certainly, do everything I can, and I'll start speaking to one of the congressional offices today about that. There are members of Congress that are especially interested in Ukraine. One of the Congress people in South Florida has Ukrainian people in the district. She has Ukrainian ancestors on both sides of her family. She's very, very interested in these issues, very passionate about it. So I'll be getting in touch with her office quickly. But again, sort of a long answer to a very important question is to implement a lot of specific controls in the middle of a war, difficult. To improve controls, possible. And then to focus on specific urgent needs might be the most realistic approach.
What would be your advice if, for example, in each problematic question, the question that was about some military request or about buying some stuff, issues, everywhere I've heard the same, like two surnames of some our governors. So is it possible? Is it possible somehow? What would be your advice for us, like citizens of Ukraine, how to manage that? Like it's high-level governors, and everywhere the same two people. How to manage that kind of situation? I'm talking about the roots and background of corruption. I mean, if people interested there, I can mention these surnames because it's not a surprise to most of them, to most of our country and population, unfortunately.
You might, if you've got something like that and you've got specific information or evidence or things, maybe you can get that might be the best approach if you want to get a message that we've got to keep an eye on these two governors. They're diverting. Sometimes when you have issues like that, sometimes the best thing to do is to see if you can get a reporter who's got a lot of attention, a lot of readers, to do a story. I mean, it would be a little bit. I mean, it could be embarrassing for the Ukrainian government, but that might be the best way to do it. The other thing is to try to get the message to a member of Congress, but I don't think they would be in a position to investigate it or know what's really happening or to do much about it. But that would be the other approach, either media or.
Thank you one more time. And Eric, do you have, I know that you have also a question to Kendall, yes?
Yeah, I just had a comment to Kendall. Yeah, Kendall, thanks a lot for support. And obviously, US is of great help, militarily, economically, and without US, we would be dead without all javelins. And about refugees, obviously you mentioned new programs for refugees. I'm speaking to a lot of people who left Ukraine. Like Anna said, many lost their houses. But what I find is about 80% of people would like to come back. In fact, if you look in Kiev, there are long lines of people now coming back to Kiev. So we would like to bring people, there are some initiatives to bring like software people back and try to keep them here, because eventually we would like to bring those people and refugees back and obviously rebuild Ukraine. So all these discussions, identifying partners who would contribute to rebuilding Ukraine, including private sector, are really helpful. So we would appreciate if you could also identify those parties.
Yeah, and identify also potential government funding. Even without a Marshall Plan, there should be some sources of U.S. aid that could be targeted to begin some rebuilding. As you say, a lot of people don't have homes anymore. They want to go back to home, but it's been destroyed. So yeah, it would seem that would be the kind of focused program that is worth bringing to the attention of the U.S. government.
Yeah, and this is what many people do not realize, including some media, because Ukraine is not Afghanistan, it's not Syria. It's really a nice, civilized, European developed country. So like I mentioned, most of these people would love to come back. And I think we start seeing, even the war zone, people are coming back, to places like Kiev.
Yeah, that's really important. I don't think most Americans know that.
Yes.
Thank you. And if it's possible, I give some conclusions to our long discussion. So firstly, it's conclusions that I think we need series of discussion because many initiatives was presented, and I hope that for our American partners it also was interesting to see different point of view from different people, from psychologists, members of parliament, members of city councils, NGO activists, so people from diaspora. I think that it will be useful also for people who will watch in this video. So I will announce the next part of our work in the Institute for Democracy and Development platform. I think in several weeks we will do more. Secondly, my conclusion is like we need also to add all initiative to mail list and send this initiative to each other, and maybe to connect some people, like Nancy wanted to connect with Mrs. Lima, and so on and so forth. Third point, it's, for example, also my solution that I am now, if I collect money from my colleagues, I collect money to direct foundations which I trust, and like I give direct numbers of heads of these foundations, and they have like very deeply understanding where these issues go. So it's my solution. For example, I have like four foundation like this, which people I believe. Third, now we work also with my father on voting and on like keeping Ukraine in southern Ukraine in Kherson region, but it's a very hard situation. And I ask all of you also represent Kherson problems with the same problems like in every place which Americans know, like Bucha, Irpin. In Kherson it's not better, and it's totally shut it up because Russians now are there and they do horrible things, even not only like political pressure, but they trying to destroy it, all people who are from Ukraine, and to build their political regime. And it's very important because they trying to do their also like fake republic. Third point is, of course, directly program. If you, as Uriel presents, if he work with women's health, he have direct program for women's health, and he can work for direct program on this issue. As Kendall mentioned, is that it's very important to have like your direct program and to work on this issue in private sector and in government sector, and maybe also to add it to Marshall Plan. So, the next point, it's also working on this Marshall Plan, because we must understand how to rebuild it, because it must be complex document, and it must be understanding how to rebuild the cities or build new cities, what people will be doing in these cities, how also foreign partners have give opportunity to work. Next question is, of course, pressure to Germany, as we mentioned today, and all work which now we do to pressure to their politicians to explain really situation and to explain them, or they help Ukraine with military issues and do more sanctions, or they have big problem with Ukrainian refugees and they must create these programs. And unfortunately now we haven't so big success, but please also join to this pressure to land tax to like federal subjects in Germany. And here in DC, we also work like in advocacy way. We send in letters. We have a lot of meetings with politicians here, with people who lobbyists, lawyers who wanted to help Ukraine. And but we also need your help to organize in the same presentations, meetings, lettering, go into demonstrations. Please join. And we also ask more volunteers to do this advocacy work. It's also very important. It also prevents killing kids, this work, yeah, because we must pay attention to these questions. And the last point which Kendall said, it's of course explanation how people who lose their houses can get like refugee status, and maybe Kendall also give to us some like text, and we can share his explanation how it works to Ukrainian who who refugees and who wanna have this status in United States. It will be very helpful. Thanks one more time to all Americans, to all Europeans who was with us today, who help us, who help Ukraine systematically, not only by votes, but by their work hours, by their money, their resources, and there are other resources. Thank you so much, and I hope we will win this war, and also we will win this war against authoritarian regimes, which represents by Putin now. Hope for the win, praying for Ukraine. Thank you for this long conversation, and see you on the next hour conversations. Thank you one more time. Thank you for patience. Thank you for ideas, and thanks to you all, to your work. It's really important. Thank you. Pray for Ukraine.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.